The Comic Republic features a lot of stories told separately in individual runs, but upon closer inspection, we find out that some characters are recording in other stories different from their own, and events that happen in different stories are being referenced in others. So I created a phrase to refer to this phenomenon. I call it the central timeline of the Comic Republic. In this video, I'll be explaining the stories that are part of the central timeline in chronological order, and other Comic Republic stories that might be added to the central timeline as time passes. Without further ado, let's get into it. The central timeline of the Comic Republic is by far the most interesting, as it brings together so many different characters from other developing stories that are present in the Comic Republic, and it handles the interactions of these characters perfectly. I also love the fact that the central timeline can feature certain characters in one story and then grants the character a separate run to flesh out said character and enable us to get to know them more, as was the case with the Guardian Prime to the Guardian Prime Genesis series, the Extremes to the Hero Generation series, and even Jade Waziri to the Chibok series. Stories that are part of the central timeline includes The Might of Guardian Prime Genesis, Hero Generation, Aje, Ireti Bidemi, Beats, Eru, Avonome, Blackbird, Visionary, Amadioha, Chibok, Metala, Vanguard. All these runs are confirmed to be part of the central timeline, and the story seems to be inching towards a similar conclusion, the battle with the Scourge, with foreshadowing and outright statements being made in several books so far. Watch my video about who the Scourge are to know what my theories are about them. Now for what we have all been waiting for, the central timeline of the Comic Republic in chronological order. Chronological means in order of time, from the earliest to the latest. The central timeline, in my opinion, started in the Visionary issue 0, where the All-Father Elodumare created the universe with the spoken word Ashe. He fashioned the Irumole as the pillars on which creation stood, and created the first race to safeguard reality, until the first race betrayed him. It's likely he created the levels of perceptions, and he dwells in the absolute, the highest that we know of. I'll talk more about the levels of perception in a later video. I wouldn't like to speculate on the time that some other primordial events happened, like the invasion of the Scourge, the release of the idols by the Ashabi Ashra Creed, the fall of the Nox civilization, the fall of Guardian Aleph, the creation of the Overwatch, the battle of Olushabumi, the abandonment of Eligwe, etc. These are all events that have been established to have happened, but a date was not given for the time this happened, so I'll try my best to give an accurate timeline based on other information I can get my hands on. The earliest event we know happened was the rebellion of the first race that abandoned their mandate. Then, in the year 2500 BC, Shango killed Oya in the Agugudu Forest of the Living, and also defeated Huisi, and then fought Ojoshi in a deadly battle. Sometime after that, I'm guessing the idols was released from their prison by the Ashabi Ashra, because in the year 1600 DC, in Ogomosho, we see Eru, the idols of fear, performing his duty as the protector of the dark and imprisoning a creature of the night that wiped out an entire village. The Scourge invasion happened sometime around the fall of the Nox civilization, which was around 500 AD. Then the fall of Guardian Aleph also happened during that time, as Gaia rejected him as her guardian. The Nox civilization was sacrificed to stop the Scourge invasion, and Guardian Aleph, along with other Forger gods, formed the Overwatch and the Jidiaye to unite the gods. The exact time for the release of the idols from the prisons was not given, and there is no way I can accurately pinpoint that, but I do know it was before 1434. The time Eric Kukuyo suffered a great injury and became unstable as the idols of fear and the concept of fear began leaking out of his vessel. The birth of Hilda Avonomemi Moses happened in 1937. Shortly after that, she disappeared from her village in Igara, Edo State, only to reappear in recent years. Sometime in that same era, the colonial era of Nigeria, Orishabumi was haunted by Adeptus, the witch hunter, and they engaged in intense battle. The Metala operations were also said to begin at a time 8 years before the first sighting of the Guardian Prime. 2 years before the first sighting of the Guardian Prime, Tunde Jaye awakens his powers as the Guardian Prime and begins training to become the beacon of faith for humanity under Titi and Gaia in the events of Guardian Prime Genesis issue 1-2. In modern day 2013, the first sightings of Guardian Prime occur, the arrival of the Age of Heroes, and the confirmation to the existence of extraterrestrial threats Jade Waziri had been wary of from the beginning of her time in the NECSS. This covers the events of the Might of Guardian Prime from issue 1-3, the Meteor Incident and the arrival of the Extremes. Happening after this are the events of Elu issue 1, where the Protector of the Night references the Meteor Incident, stating, "Last week, a star fell from the sky. the Earth's guardian, its champion of Emerald, saved us all. In this issue, he defeats the Blood Priests, a dedicated servant of the Scourge. In the issue 3 of Eru, he was told by one of the Jarumi that Amadioha would love to see him. And I think this is what prompted Eru's visit to Amadioha in the issue 4 of Amadioha. The Extremes and Guardian Prime are attacked by the NACSS to make him demonstrate his abilities and confirm he's on their side. He is then given a mission to send a probe to the dark side of the moon, which sparks the Kaori invasion of the Earth. This invasion was resisted by the Guardian Prime and the Extremes on the ground, with it coming to an end when Guardian Prime used his powers to explode brighter than the Blue Star and destroy the Kaori mothership, trapping himself in space unconscious in the event of Might and Guardian Prime, issue 4 to 6. The Extreme continue their heroic acts, taking down other superpowered individuals and Alpha Sapiens until they are contacted by the NECSS. They are given a mission to take down Jissim, Ireti brother, that seems to have a troubled past with Powerbox. These events take place in Ireti issue 6 and Herogen issue 6. In the Herogen issue 7, the fugitive escapes extreme custody and they are given another task by the NECSS, which introduces them to the Jazz and Tag storyline. Subsequently, other storylines continue to build up with Ajay realizing and mastering her powers, meeting with Buteno, with Tibidemi trading her powers, dealing with the realities of her life, her family being targeted, and her brother being a straight-up villain. Now her identity/reputation is being ruined. Beats also going around trashing bullies in the streets of Lagos. I think that not every run in the Comic Republic series is caught up to the Vanguard Discovery timeline yet. Books like Ajay, Herogen, Guardian Prime Genesis, Amadioha, Chibok, and Ireti are not caught up to the main storyline, while stories like Might of Guardian Prime, Visionary, Beats, Blackbird are caught up to the story, or at least to Vanguard Union. In Guardian Prime Genesis Issue 2, Jade Waziri assembles a team to retrieve Guardian Prime from space, and the rescue mission almost results in a disaster. The mission is saved by Guardian Prime, and he soon realizes that a friend of his has been traded to a lesser member of the First Race in order to get an artifact. He goes to rescue her, and he defeats Vlekete in the process. He took Titi to his home, and they reminisce about the past. It seems they are in a romantic relationship. They remember together the first time he met Gaia. This is where the story of the Guardian Prime origin ends. We might continue this timeline of the Guardian Prime's 2-year training arc when issue 5 of the Guardian Prime Genesis comes out. Now, what happens is that there's a time skip to the events of the Might of Guardian Prime issue 7, where the NECSS, in their research for worthy assets in the upcoming war, awaken a lesser member of the First Race in Alusi Ezekalu, which Guardian Prime defeats by controlling his emotions. He blames Jade for this mess. What happens next is the event of Beats issue 5, where Powerbox joins Beats to defeat Richter, the shockwave manipulating lunatic. After that, we go back to the event of Guardian Prime issue 8, where Guardian Prime is invited to the Independence Day celebration. Chief Festus Okorie and Dr. Taiwo Ajanaku were also present. This was probably Damole's father before he was killed by the Truth of All Things. Guardian Prime is summoned by Jade shortly after, and after much scolding over the events of issue 7, she gives him information about the Leicester Protocol. She lets him know about the US Union Guard project and its desecration of African artifacts. So when NACSS satellites pick up a buildup of energy in the US, Guardian Prime goes to intervene, and he is stopped by the Union Guard. He later helps them defeat the invading member of the First Race, Ivriwi. Little did they know that it was just the first phase of the invasion. The second phase of the invasion took place in the coastal city of Lagos, where the ruler of the sea, Mamuwata, brought an entire army to lay waste to the place because of the desecration of ancient artifacts by the NECSS. They are defeated by the Vanguard though, and other heroes like the unsung hero, Beats, and even Metala helped out. We then cut back to Beats issue 5, where we see him in the hospital visiting a victim he saved from the Richter when the tsunami sent by Mamuwata hit. After this is the defeat of Mamuwata, then the defeat of all our ground troops, and then the defeat of Aziza in the USA. Next is the events of Visionary issue 1, where we see Shango decimate an entire fleet of NACSS Mets, Magical Entity Takedown Squad, and make his way to Igole after he senses the awakening of Ojokshi inside of Damole Ajanaku, and brute force his way into Igole, dismissing the Shigidi, and even Ogun as he arrives. But unknown to him, Eru was already there, and he had sealed Ojokshi once more, before Shango got another chance to fight him. In the events of Visionary issue 5, Eru takes Damole Ajanaku into the traveled Castrovoto to face his fears. There they met with Ashe, the fate of all things, and almost manifest an Enumole. Ashe dismisses Eru and takes the Visionary for herself to prepare him. Shango is now challenged to face the entire force of the gods that reside in the 7 peaks of Ifa, which he is delighted at hearing. This guy never backs down from a fight. And now that I think about it, there is a time skip right here. We don't know how the gauntlet went yet. But one thing is sure, he survived. Just what are you made of, Shango? The next thing that happened is the Vanguard aftermath, where the public hears from the destruction caused by the Battle of Lagos, and will review the incidents from different perspectives. Guardian Prime is even charged to court and investigated by the Metana. Then we see in an NACSS base, where a formerly dormant artifact become active after the Battle of Lagos. It suddenly explodes and a lot of sea dwellers appear on the site. They overwhelm the NACSS operatives on site. Like seriously, can you guys get a win? Eru comes to their rescue and they demand to take the artifacts to summon their ruler, Olokun. But when the artifact opens the portal to Olokun, Avonomen, the plane walker, intervenes to close the portal. Shango, upon sensing Olokun, appears on the site in a bolt of lightning and expresses his disgust after finding out the portal was closed. Dude is always in the mood for a fight. Next thing that happens is the Vanguard Overwatch Issue 1, where the Vanguard stopped a group of demigods and lesser members of the first race from breaking Mamiwata, Izui, and Ezekalu out of prison they were being held in the US. Other members of the first race show up and confront the Vanguard, giving them enough information about what their goal is, and even offering them a peace offering in the form of the defeated Ekpe. Gaia also showed up and interrupted them, stopping Zeus from giving the Guardian Prime too much information. The Overwatch gives the Vanguard a mission to retrieve the Mirror of Life and send them through portals to the locations with a demigod to accompany all of them, except for Guardian Prime. Guardian Prime is sent to the Mirror of Man, and there he meets Shango, ready to fight. Thor appears and Shango begins fighting him. Raiden also appears and Guardian Prime begins fighting him. Shango wins and Guardian Prime loses. Guardian Prime is then rescued by Yewa, a shadow of Gaia. Then the next thing that happens is the event of the Blackbeard, where Kei Kuroko perfects her Mecha Kaiju armor and uses it to battle against crime. In the Vanguard Discovery Issue 1, she detects the energy from the portal of Nutek and Sanbi Kitsune and engages them in battle until they realize they are on the same side. Raiden comes for them shortly after their newfound understanding. Being an elder god scaling above current Guardian Prime, he defeats them all and takes the Water Mirror. In the Vanguard Discovery Issue 3, Raiden is attacked by Thor, Amaterasu, and Quetzalcoatl, and we are introduced to the Cabal, a mysterious organization with Scourge affiliations. We see Powerbox and Hercules. Are defeated by Scourge technology, and they are rescued by a branch of the NECSS called the SAS. What happens after this is the event of Might of Guardian Prime Issue 11, where we see him discussing with Yewa about the truth Gaia held from him. And the Guardian Prime makes the decision that fate is not enough, and he embarks on the trial that will enable him to rely on his will so he can get stronger, strong enough to save his friends. We also see in recently released chapters what happened in Beats after the Vanguard Aftermath but before Vanguard Overwatch, where Beats is used as a beacon to amplify Puppet Master's control over homovariants. And also before the events of Vanguard Union, Ireti Bidemi is kidnapped by Ajalu, a manipulated man who was tricked into turning his father into stone and needs Ireti's powers in order to reverse his mistake. Ireti tries to escape and she is held by one of her former villains. These are all the major character events that have happened and is happening in the central timeline of the Comic Republic so far. I love where it is going. A change of pace to the conventional hero story, and we keep getting more backstories to these already established characters. Normally, I'll be pissed off with several holes and time skip in the story, but I'm fine with it since it gives us an avenue to go back and learn a little bit more about these characters we already love. Narrating this way can be quite difficult, so I'm hoping the creative team doesn't make too many mistakes in their telling of the story. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. I thank you for listening this long. I'll continue to cover more about the Comic Republic and other Comic Republic characters. Stay tuned for more.